It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it, caught, touchdown, did he get it?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in. It's another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, streaming on 1069thefan.com and the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Lots of different ways to tune in, be a part of the program, and ways for you to be a part of the program. Not just listen, you can actually participate. We actively encourage texting into the program on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. And Jason, certainly a lot of the discussion we need to have today is not about what happened in San Francisco, but what happened in Laramie on Saturday night. Utah State's getting another conference win, keeping pace on top. Technically, with the tiebreaker, they are the number one team in the Mountain West Conference right now. Man, they almost gave that one away, but they weren't the only team who almost gave away a game over the weekend in the Mountain West. So I wanted to spend some time recapping Utah State at Wyoming. Where do things sit currently in the standings, the rankings, and all that stuff, looking at across the overall Mountain West. And certainly news today from the Mountain West, rumors started to percolate over the weekend, and it became more and more firm.
Yeah, we got the unofficially official we got the rumors on Saturday, the unofficially official on Sunday, and then the officially official today.
Yes, today the Mountain West adding another football playing school. Is the Mountain West outpacing the Pac-12 in some of their moves in conference realignment and expansion? So
the answer to that is no. But.
So we can discuss that a little bit later on in the program. But let's first talk about Utah State and Wyoming, Jason. It was kind of a struggle. Wyoming had a different game plan against the Aggies than the time when they were up in Logan. They needed to have a different game plan because whatever they had was garbage. So they took a little bit different approach. And not that it totally bothered the Aggies. It slowed them down for sure, and it kept Wyoming in the game. But in the second half, Utah State started to pull away until they didn't. And so certainly a big part of the game was how that game got closed out in the last few minutes. How much of that is just Wyoming's at home, little desperation, they're kind of playing on house money because they've got nothing to lose, versus Utah State maybe getting a little bit tight and just maybe overlooking the opponent and not really being mentally focused as they need to be in the final few minutes?
Well, the biggest thing is that Utah State made some mistakes. I'd lean a lot more on it being kind of Utah mistakes versus Wyoming competence, you might say. Now, and I'd say it's roughly a 70-30 split because Wyoming played a factor in, being able to come back. But like Utah State, when they pulled away, they were ahead by 11 with, 3 minutes to play or something like that. Mm-hmm. At that point, you've got to be able to finish them off. And do you, finish with an 11-point win? Not necessarily, but you should be finishing with like an 8, between a 7 and 12-point lead at that stretch. Like, does Wyoming make a few buckets in the last couple of possessions?
Yeah, they're up by 10 with 2:21 to go.
Yeah. So they should not have let that happen. And you had multiple empty possessions. You had ones where you turn it over. You had ones where you missed free throws. Like, Utah State made a lot of mistakes in that. It wasn't just like, Wyoming suddenly becoming red hot and hitting a bunch of shots. They went to the free throw line a bunch, honestly. So Utah State fouling on these possessions was a factor there. So, like, there were some things that Utah State obviously didn't do that, would have kept this game a lot, kept Wyoming at least at arm's length. Because, I mean, you look at the home game that Utah State played against the Cowboys, they held Wyoming to 62 points. You come back home and they score 21 more points. The Aggies' difference on offense wasn't really that much. Wyoming didn't really have an answer for Utah State's offense at really any stage of this game. Like maybe the first 2 or 3 minutes when the Aggies turned it over, so it was kind of still more their fault than Wyoming. Because, Utah State averaged 1.3 points per possession. In this game, they averaged 1.4 against them at home. So, Utah State was not bothered by whatever Wyoming was trying on defense. They had stretches in this game where they made 9 straight shots on 2 different occasions. In the second half, they shot 70%. So I saw some people say that something about, Wyoming bothering the Aggies on offense. And I was like, what game were you watching? The Aggies made 9 straight shots toward the end of the first half, 9 straight shots in the middle of the second half. And again...
big stretches where the offense just couldn't miss for Utah State.
And they were generating the easiest shots, making even the difficult ones. So, again, anything you want to complain about with this game for Utah State is on defense. Because there was hardly nothing that the offense did poorly. With just, in one, you score 85 points on the road, that's solid. You shoot 64% from the field. You shoot 50% from 3. The free throws weren't great, but 21 of 29 isn't a disaster. It's just you missed some in a couple of the wrong places. So everything that I feel like there's a complaint for in this game goes to the defensive side. You have a team in Wyoming who over the last, I think, the previous 7 or 8 games, I forget which one, 7 or 8 games leading into this one against Utah State, they had shot 29% from 3. Now, one game within there was an outlier in which they hit 13 3-pointers against Colorado State. Of course, I think even in that game, I think Wyoming only scored 68. And they scored 68 against Colorado State when they just hit a bunch of 3-pointers in that game. Wyoming, again, a team that does not shoot 3-pointers particularly well. And sure, they're at home, but you've got to be better at defending the 3-point line. We just came off of a game that Utah State was against New Mexico where they defended the 3-pointer incredibly well. Yeah. Especially in the second half where didn't they not allow a single 3-pointer, if memory serves? 0 for 6, I think.
Great team defense on the perimeter.
Jake Hall had been lighting up literally everybody from 3, and he didn't hit a single 3-pointer in the second half, only had 2 the entire game. Utah State had just barely had a game where they defended the 3-pointer incredibly well, and then they let Wyoming just get hot from 3. Now, in the end, they end up shooting 39%. That's still pretty solid. They got a bit cold at the end, but they just gave up too many, I think, open 3-pointers. Because to be honest, the cure for the ailing 3-point shooter is wide open 3s. Then they get hot and then they hit some of the more difficult ones. And the Aggies gave up a few too many of those, I guess maybe expecting them to just miss. And they didn't just miss. They hit, 39%, 10% higher than what they'd been doing as of late.
Yeah, Wyoming outscored Utah State 13-5 in the last 2.5 minutes. So there were just some things where, Utah State, how they handled some inbounds plays, some silly fouls here or there.
I'm not a big fan of the inbounds play where they pass it to MJ Collins and he's standing 5 feet from the corner.
Yeah. I mean, you inbounds a ball right into the coffin corner. He has nowhere to go.
They did it twice.
Yeah. And once he gets bumped, which, he kind of gets bumped. Maybe he oversells it a little bit. And then another time, they wrap him up and get a jump ball call, which may have been a little bit quick on that call. But regardless, 2 scary, questionable things happen in the same spot. How do you keep going to that area? Which is one of the areas you absolutely should avoid when you're doing an inbounds pass late in the game. So that surprised me a little bit. I know you want to get it in the hands of one of your best free throw shooters, but MJ Collins has to be smarter about where he goes to make himself available for an inbounds pass.
Yeah, well, I think it was pretty clear. That was the design play, so I don't even know if that's necessarily on MJ Collins. That was part of the play design, is get him in the corner and then just pray for a foul. But in one case where whenever you're trying to wrap up for that tie up and the guys they're trying to shield the ball, basically flip a coin on whether or not the referee is going to call a foul Although, to be honest, it's more like rolling a dice because it's like 70-30, 75-25. They'll call a foul. But, like, you can't bank on the referee making that call because they put it in the hands of the referee twice. They got burned on one and they got lucky on the other.
Yes.
So, and it very could have easily gone the other way if the referees weren't quick with their whistle. So, the Aggies did not do themselves any favors down the stretch. And it was also kind of the one point where they suddenly started missing shots because they had a couple straight possessions where they missed their last 2 shot attempts. And heck, it was by their 2 best scorers. MJ Collins missed a shot and Mason Falslev missed a shot. And either one of those goes in, we're not really talking about this one nearly being a loss because that would have put them up a little bit too far ahead. But they left the door open enough. And when MJ Collins missed that free throw, where it's like you hit that free throw to go up 3, and that's the kind of, okay, as long as we don't give him a 4-point play, then we're good. But, like, when he missed that, it's like, okay, Wyoming's been hot from 3. You think they're just going to go up there and take it? And, like, I was almost convinced, like, of course this is going to be how the Aggies lose, but it doesn't end up happening.
Yeah.
They put the ball in the hand of the guy that had the hot hand, Naz Meyer, had scored a bunch of those points. He'd gotten the and one. He played hero ball, took a terrible shot, but Mason Falslev forced him into that shot. So for all the problems the defense had, and Mason Falslev criticized his own defensive performance, but he bodied up and denied Naz Meyer at the very end there, forced a bad shot, and then it was a scramble for the ball, and the Aggies came up with it.
Yeah, wild finish for Utah State, but in the end, they get the win. A win is a win is a win. They win on the road. They didn't win by the margin that was projected, so maybe that hurts some of their metrics a little bit.
Funny thing is, I don't think they dropped, like in KenPom, I don't think they dropped at all. So I think they were 26 heading into it. They're 26 now.
They're still 25 in the net.
Yeah, so I expected them to drop, and they didn't. It was kind of weird because with San Diego State, they won, didn't move up at all. In fact, they fell 1 spot in KenPom. And then when you have a close win, a not so great, not so impressive win against Wyoming, and suddenly you don't move down, I don't know, make it make sense.
Let's see. So I'm just double checking here. I'm seeing their time frame in the net. You can see kind of their pattern.
Because I'm looking at KenPom, they were 34 before beating Colorado State. They moved up when they blew out Wyoming.
So they were 23 before the game.
Yeah. Well, they moved
and they
down.
went to 25.
Oh, so, but yeah, like when they
reward for winning on the road is a drop in the net.
Yeah. Well, it's by margin.
Yeah. Margin of victory kind of matters there.
Net cares about style points more so than really any other metric I've seen. They care about style points. If you beat a team by 60, then that basically beating a bad team by 60 is better than beating like the number 1 team by 5. Like as far as the net, I'm pretty sure. Like you will get more credit. Mind you, beating any team by 60 actually is genuinely impressive. But like still, like would you value Utah State beating Air Force by 50, or would you value them beating Arizona by any margin?
Yeah, true.
But the net would love beating a team ranked in the 300s by 50, just because the net loves those style points. And it's part of why I don't place as much stock in the net as a ranking, as much as just it's kind of one of the metrics that are out there, and it's used to sort quad 1 wins and all that.
Yeah. Wyoming currently at 97 in the net. They dropped from 96 to 97 today. But Utah State holding steady at 25. Utah State also continuing to receive votes in the AP Top 25 poll. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised that they're not ranked. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But how they do this week could start to move them closer into that conversation.
Maybe. I mean, if they get 2 blowout wins, like they're projected to win, looking at KenPom, they're projected to beat Fresno 81-64. They're projected to beat Memphis 80-66. If this were the Memphis we were hoping to see in the preseason, yeah, that's a win that could get them ranked in the top 25. But unfortunately, with the AP voters, when you had those back-to-back losses, it gave an excuse to a lot of those voters to just kind of stop including Utah State. Because, again, the criteria are win a ton. You look at what St. Louis is doing. They're ranked where they're, 21-1 or something? They've got 1 or 2 losses at all season. Mm-hmm. I mean, Miami of Ohio
hasn't lost at all.
Which is, they're a team that is genuinely one of the worst undefeated teams I've ever seen. Like, as far as you look at how often they're barely beating bad teams. But they keep winning, so give it to them. But, they're, borderline not a top 100 team. But because you win that much, you get to be ranked. That's one of the criteria. That or beat a ranked team. Those are your 2 criteria. Beat ranked teams or just win a crap ton of games. And for Utah State, they just have to win a bunch of games in a row, and eventually they can drag themselves into the top 25 poll. Because they don't really have a marquee game until San Diego State, basically. You do have Boise and Nevada, but those will move the needle about as much as the New Mexico game did, which it didn't really move the needle that much for the voters. They went from having 6 points or 7 points to 15. So 4 more voters included them in their poll.
Yeah,
at
marginal
22.
movement.
So, if you win all of Fresno, Memphis, Boise State, Nevada, San Diego State, that'll move the needle. But again, that has more to do with just stacking wins than necessarily who you're beating.
Yeah, VCU kind of goes back and forth whether they're a quad 1 win or not because they're right on that edge. Today, they are at 49, so that means that is a quad 1 win for USU. So they're 3-2 in the first quadrant, 5-0 in the second. But the games this week, they're not quad 1 opportunities, neither one of them. Both of them will be quad 3 games. The Fresno State is at 139, and Memphis is at 103. So, Utah State, they have to stack wins. But that game against Wyoming, just kind of circling back on that performance on Saturday for Utah State, what a game by Mason Falslev. I mean, he is the heart and soul of this basketball team. I get it that basketball player from Boise, he had a great week. When you look at his 2 games combined,
Dylan Andrews.
Yeah, Andrews, and it's okay, that's a good week, and he helped his team win an overtime game on the road. But Mason Falslev, just what he does for his team, not just in scoring, but all around. I don't know how you keep denying this guy a weekly honor. He is likely the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year and may not win a weekly award.
Funnily enough, that wouldn't be the first time that has happened, nor would it have been the first time that it happened to a Utah State player.
Yeah, no, it's true.
Sam Merrill won Player of the Year without having won a single weekly award. And that's the thing is the weekly awards, it's about what stats did you put up mixed with who did you beat. It's not a season-long performance. It's not even really an indicator of season-long performance because Player of the Year is about consistency and just being the best player over the course of a season. So, because you look at this week's Player of the Week, if you look at how the Mountain West does its voting, what it prioritizes, I've criticized in the past for going against what they prioritize, and I'll criticize them for that, but based on their relatively established, with a couple of exceptions, based on their relatively established criteria, you give it to Dylan Andrews. Boise State beat New Mexico on the road and beat Nevada at home. Utah State, they beat New Mexico worse on the road.
Destroyed them.
So, there's
at the time,
that.
It was another top team. They were one of the top 3 teams.
So then they were really close against Wyoming. And if you look at stat lines, I think Dylan Andrews had more points because he had a 33, which if you have a 30-point game, you start penciling in your Player of the Week trophy.
Right.
But 33 in one game, 25 in the other. So I think he had more total points than Mason. I think he had more rebounds. I don't know about I didn't do a direct side-by-side comparison, but from what I could tell, statistically leans toward Dylan Andrews. Caliber of opponent leads toward Andrews. So I have no problem with Dylan Andrews winning that weekly award. If you put a ballot in front of me, I very much would have considered him over Mason Falslev. Doesn't take away from what Mason did, but if you look at Player of the Year, metrics and standings and all that, if you're a voter in the Mountain West and you don't, put Mason, if the voting were to happen today and you didn't put Mason Falslev, I would genuinely question your intelligence.
Yeah. What games are you watching?
Yeah, they're just, whatever metric you're using, unless you're just saying, all right, points per game, which I can't argue with that because Mason Falslev isn't the leading scorer, but you look at impact metrics. every single impact metric. I was checking them today. Every advanced stat, Evan Mia, box plus minus, Bartorvik, every, Ken Palm, every single player metric that measures individual impact has Mason Falsev as the number one player in the conference. And if you look at best player, best team, he's the best player on the team that is number one in the conference right now when you count the tiebreaker. So it's just, and a lot can change over the next 8 or 9 games. A lot can change. But barring a collapse from Mason Falsev, and even if the Aggies finished second to San Diego State, the award should go to Mason Falsev because ain't nobody on an individual level on San Diego State doing anything what Mason is doing.
Yeah, no kidding. I'd love to continue to get your reactions to Saturday's win by Utah State over Wyoming. Other games in the Mountain West. What do the standings look like after a crazy weekend? As we alluded to, Utah State at Wyoming wasn't the only game.
Utah State was copying off the notes of a different team.
That came down to the wire with a team that had a lead and gave it away. So we'll get to...
They didn't give it away. They almost did.
Almost gave it away, yes. So another team... Did they give it away? I think they almost gave it away.
They almost did.
Yeah.
2 teams almost gave it away.
But still found ways to win. But we'll look at the rest of the conference, what happened over the weekend. Mason Falsev did not receive an honor. There was another Aggie who did. We need to mention him. And I'd love to get your reactions to that also. 435-339-0321.
You're on your way to work when that little light pops on. The one that says, hey, you need service. But who has time to sit in a waiting room? West Motor Ford will pick up your vehicle from home or work, service it, and bring it right back. Pickup and delivery are completely free within a 35-mile radius. That's anywhere from Malad to Montpelier, Hiram to Tremonton. Plus, get $25 off any repair over $250. Schedule your free pickup and delivery at westmotorford.com or call 208-852-3853.
Hi, this is Ashley with LSS Insurance. Medicare can seem complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Let us help. We'll answer all your questions and get you specific information that fits your needs. Medicare is not one size fits all. We'll help you find the right coverage for you. Call 752-9493. You can ignore the TV and the junk mail. We'll get you the exact information you need. We will help you access the benefits that are important to you. Call LSS Insurance at 752-9493.
Some companies pack it in when winter hits, not Top Shed. Cold, snow, wind, we build anyway, on site, all winter, all year. Logan, Tremonton, Preston, Malad, wherever you are in northern Utah, southern Idaho, or Wyoming, we bring the crew to you. Because around here, Mother Nature might slow traffic, but she can't cancel Top Shed. Top Shed, making sheds great again. Call 435-760-7766 or visit topshedusa.com.
Headed to Logan or just need an easy, affordable place to stay? Mention Aggie 79 and get a room at the Baum Motel for just $79. Located minutes from Utah State University, it's ideal for football weekends, graduation, campus events, or visiting family. No long drives, no stress. At the Sure Stay Baum Motel, you'll enjoy comfortable beds, a free continental breakfast, and seasonal outdoor pool, all at a price that makes sense. $79 rooms with Aggie 79. Call 435-752-5220. That's 752-5220 to book today.
Express your love for her this Valentine's Day by presenting a piece of diamond jewelry from S.E. Needham Jewelers. Diamond jewelry makes a woman feel cherished. A pair of beautiful diamond earrings will add to the sparkle in her eyes. Adorned in diamond earrings, she will feel elegant and appreciated. Choose from a large selection of quality diamond earrings, all specially priced for Valentine's Day. Remember, diamonds from S.E. Needham's will be noticed from across the room and everyone will know she's yours. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Winter's here and that old car sitting in the driveway isn't getting any warmer. Turn that frozen junker into cold hard cash with DD Auto and Salvage in Logan. It's never too cold, too wet, or too late to clean up and cash out. DD Auto and Salvage makes it quick and easy. They'll even pick it up for you. Get the most money possible for junk vehicles or scrap metal. Clear it out. Get the cash today. Call 787-1204. That's 787-1204. And let DD Auto and Salvage pay you today. DD Auto and Salvage. Cold cars turned into hot cash.
It doesn't matter who you root for. The Full Court Press has all the high school sports covered. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
No guesswork, nor shortcuts, just trained technicians who fix it right the first time. It's Young Power Sports of Logan. They handle Can-Am, Kawasaki, Polaris, Ski-Doo. They handle them all. In and out, done right, guaranteed. Pickup and delivery is available within a 25-mile radius, so you can get back out on the road, the trail, or the track fast. Schedule your service now by calling 755-7111. That's Young Power Sports in Logan, and their service department, 755-7111. And they sponsor our text line. Got a few texts rolling through, 9315 texting in. All that matters when you go to the crazy prairie town of Wind in Wyoming is to make it home and not get stuck there and win in any way possible. Mountain West is adding teams like they think quantity will outdo quality. It's more like a salad going brown. You may not die from eating it, but you still will feel gross, possibly get sick for doing it. Mountain West Conference is still not better than the pack with all the new adding.
Yeah, we'll dive into that a little bit more in the second hour. The Mountain West adding North Dakota State, the mighty Bison, I believe, right?
Is it Bison or Bison?
I'm not 100% sure.
I saw something about the Mountain West is losing a team that gets upset if you call them Boise, but they're getting another team that gets upset if you don't say Bison. Something about how you pronounce the S. Is it an S or a Z?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But I also know that
follow North Dakota State that closely.
I've also heard Boise, they in their brand guidelines don't ever refer to them as BSU. Like that's you're not supposed, even though I do it all the time.
Yep.
And abbreviations. And also, apparently, Miami of Ohio gets upset when you call them Miami of Ohio because they're just Miami.
They're Miami.
And apparently, they talk about they might even predate the Miami University down in Florida. That may or may not be true. I haven't fact checked it, but apparently, they don't like being referred to as Miami of Ohio or Miami parentheses OH. But get used to it. When there's multiple, universities with that same, they got to put that state name in there, and you're not as well known. Like St. Mary's, they're always St. Mary's, Princess, California. Because guess what? There's another St. Mary's. So, and nobody even knows there is another St. Mary's. But they all know that most of the time they refer to St. Mary's, the relatively well-known basketball school.
Yeah, the one in Moraga, California.
They put the parentheses, California, as a distinction, even though nobody even knows where the other St. Mary's is. I don't even know. I just know there's one that exists, and it's somewhere. So
somewhere.
Get used to being called Miami of Ohio.
6543 texting in. How many teams that the Aggies played in preseason will make it to the NCAA tourney? Ooh, good question.
Let's see. VCU, yes. Weber, if they win their conference tournament. UTEP, I don't think so. Tulane, I doubt it.
Davidson,
probably not.
VCU, probably.
Yeah, it's a VCU, very likely to make it, at least decently likely to make it. Illinois State, if they win their conference. So South Florida. So let's see. I'm fairly certain, South Florida's not been having as good of a time of late, but pretty confident in VCU and South Florida's ability to make it. They could both slip up and not make it. South Florida's will be a little dependent on them.
VCU
winning the conference tournament
currently is in only one bracket on Bracket Matrix.
Yeah.
So they're in the at-large. South Florida is also in the at-large. They're only in 4 brackets.
Yeah. Like if they have a good end to the season, they could pull it off. But they're on the bubble. And basically everyone else is, do they win their conference tournament? Like, could Montana State? Yeah, if they win their conference tournament. Illinois State, if they win their conference tournament.
Yeah, Illinois State's only in one bracket.
Yeah, so that's kind of, and honestly, it's probably them as an at-large, or as a
automatic qualifier.
Yeah,
someone
automatic
has
qualifier.
them as the automatic qualifier.
Yeah, so they may end up not having a single NCAA tournament team in their non-conference. Like that is a fairly realistic possibility.
Yeah.
They have like 3 bubble teams or 3 teams that have a decent chance of either being on the bubble or winning their conference tournament. But yeah, it's Utah State tried, but it just didn't work out. VCU's not as good as they were hoping. South Florida's tailed off a little bit from their start, and Memphis is decided to be terrible this year.
Randomly, I watched one of their games here recently. They were on the road at UAB, and they had a guy go for like 40 points. Memphis did. We'll get into more of what their roster looks like and what they're capable of later in the week. But
the main thing with Memphis is that they have one of the best defenses in the country and one of the most painfully inconsistent offenses you'll ever see in your life. That's Memphis.
Well, and the guy that dropped that 40 points, he was coming off the bench.
Yeah.
So, wildly inconsistent. But over the weekend, Utah State and Wyoming, it was a close finish, closer than it needed to be. But Utah State, they got the win. They had a buffer. They made the shots they needed to, made enough stops. Thankfully, the clock ran out on Wyoming. That's frankly how that game was decided.
Yeah, and credit to the Aggies for like continually pulling ahead. Like, again, they never slowed down on offense. It was just their defense that kind of came and went. And Wyoming just had one of their better offensive games of the season. A lot of it dictated by they just shot well from three when they normally don't. And to be honest, that's how they've gotten a lot of their wins in conference play. Is like, all right, when are you hot from three? When they couldn't make a dang thing from three, Utah State blew them out by 32. If Wyoming shot as well as they normally do from three, the Aggies probably win by 18 on the road. And some of that is Utah State not playing as good 3-point defense as they should have. I don't want to say that it's entirely just Wyoming luck. Like Utah State, and of course Wyoming had their game plan kind of in concert with Utah State not playing good defensive performance. They kind of generated some of those themselves, but I feel like I put a lot of it on Utah State, not being up to par. And that's not to say that it's the sky is falling or anything like that. Utah State just didn't have that great of a game defensively. But one thing that kind of would give me confidence for Utah State is that while, after those UNLV and Grand Canyon, I was starting to sound the alarm on, is this going to be just like last year? And it's not been, because unlike last year, the Aggies responded and started playing defense again.
Yeah.
They had several really good defensive games. And you know what? This one just turned out to not be as good. San Diego State's given up 70, 80 points to teams this year. Good defensive teams will have that, bad game. The other team also kind of gets hot. And so for Utah State, you look at the tape, you figure out what we did wrong, and, go back against Fresno State, who's going to bring their own kind of challenge. Go out there and do what you did after you had two bad defensive games against Grand Canyon UNLV. They held 4 straight teams to 66 or fewer points. So, all right, you slipped up again on defense. All right, go out there and get back to work.
Yeah, the only thing that kind of concerns me is that Utah State beat Nevada, but their coach was saying, I think we figured some things out on how to attack Utah State. And then the next 2 games, Utah State gives up a lot of points. It's like an opponent figured something out that other opponents figured out by watching the game film that allowed them to do something against Utah State that took them a while to adjust and figure out. Has Wyoming now figured out another aspect of how to attack Utah State's defense that puts it on film for other teams to try to exploit now?
Perhaps, but the last time 2 teams figured out how to, score against the Aggies closed whatever loophole that was, pretty quickly, because Colorado State, one of the better offensive teams, could only score 61. Wyoming scored 62. San Diego State, like all these teams that had access to that film, that had the ability to game plan for that quite frankly have better offensive weapons than Grand Canyon and UNLV, they had worse games. And while Wyoming was able to do something, I think part of that is that Utah State was facing Wyoming again, and Wyoming was also a different roster, and the Aggies hadn't been exposed as much to that version of the Wyoming roster that was a lot more guard heavy. Nevada's guard heavy. They were when the Aggies faced them the first time. They're going to be again when they face them the next time. And Nevada wasn't able to bully their way inside and weren't able to hit enough threes against the Aggies. And so maybe Nevada's figured something out. We'll find out a little bit more on February 21st, though.
Yeah, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is the trend. Like Nevada maybe talks like they may have figured something out, and then Grand Canyon and UNLV in the subsequent games, Aggies struggle and they lose 2 games. Wyoming, they lose, but did they figure something out? Will the Aggies be at risk against Fresno and Memphis? Not so much Memphis because they're not as familiar with the tape, but you're right. They did. Utah State eventually figured some things out, but is there a new wrinkle that that Wyoming has figured out how to exploit?
Yeah, well, look, this is the whole thing with it's why we talk about having to get better throughout the entire season, because at this point, I think everyone has played everyone at least once. Everyone has watched almost all the conference games of every other team, either in directly preparing for that team, or they've been watching film of another team that happens to be playing, another team in the conference. So every team has every other team's playbook written down on their scouting report. They know what plays everyone runs. They know what sets they run. They know what to look for. They know the playbooks of these of their opponents about as well as their opponents do. And so it just comes down to how well do you execute that? How well do you maybe add slightly new wrinkles or counters, because that's where you can improvise a little bit. But it's just about getting better, because they'll begin to figure things out about you. But if you're getting better and better, well, they're looking at a version of you that's a month old. And if you've gotten way better from that, then sure, they can game plan for what they saw on tape, when they played you a month ago, or what they saw on tape last week. But if you're better than that, and if you've been practicing and refining all these sets and maybe add a new wrinkle to one or two, that's why you've got to stay ahead. Because, if Wyoming manages to score 83 against you, well, if you get better, the next team can watch that tape, but you're better, than that now. And you're playing better than that. So they might say, oh, we've got you figured out. Not anymore. It's been a few days since then, and we've gotten better. And suddenly all those things you try because you saw it on tape and you think you have them, you don't have them.
You counter. You make adjustments.
It's why Colorado State, Aggies rip the doors off of Colorado State. Not just blow the doors. They rip the doors off and throw them in the lake. It's a 4-point game next time they play them. They did the same thing to Wyoming. They picked them up, threw them 6 states away. It's a close game the next time. You think you know how to attack them, but then suddenly you don't, because they're a different team, right, and they play differently than you saw on tape. Even though you've seen them before, you think you know who they are. Well, they're not, because teams change, and that's the big key. So I don't know if Nevada's talking a big game. If they're saying they saw something on film, well, good luck, because Utah State's not going to be the same team on February 21st, and Nevada's not going to be the same team. So it's going to come. There's a lot of different things that are going to factor into that Nevada game than whatever happens, on Saturday against Wyoming.
Yeah. So Utah State and Wyoming, it wasn't the only close game in the Mountain West on Saturday. There were multiple games that were very close. And one particular game that played out very similar to USU at Wyoming and Laramie, that was between UNLV and Grand Canyon. This was a matchup that I was really interested to see. Two teams that figured out how to beat Utah State. Two teams that the way that their roster is built, the way that they play, proved to be difficult for USU to handle. So how would they fare matching up against each other? Initially, first little bit, it was back and forth, anybody's game. But then UNLV starts to separate at halftime. Well, about halfway through the first half, they start to separate, and they maintain that lead. And then they hold steady at it. Then they kind of go cold, let Grand Canyon back into it, but never relinquish the lead, and build that up to a 15-point lead with 2.5 to go. And this looks like UNLV's got this in the bag until they don't. Just like what happened with Utah State and Wyoming. UNLV totally fumbles the ball. Grand Canyon comes back, makes it anybody's game with just a few minutes to go into the final closing seconds. It's a 4-point game with 22 seconds left, but UNLV figures out how to way to close it out and win. But they only win by a narrow margin, 80-78, after being up by 15, with 2.5 to go.
Yeah, that was an embarrassment for UNLV. Not a total embarrassment, because again, they managed to pull off the win. Again, this is why Utah State was kind of cheating off UNLV's notes. Apparently, they need to stop cheating off UNLV as far as how to finish a game, because UNLV got their master's in how to blow a game against Fresno, and they just about got their doctorate against Grand Canyon.
That's true. They got outscored 19-6 in the last 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, so
You gave up 19 points in the last 2.5 minutes. That's bonkers.
You can't be blowing it like that. But like Grand Canyon's a good team. Like, and if they can get hot from three, and of course, both these teams are just so weird in that they can be so elite on defense, but they can also be a little foul happy. More especially UNLV. They are so foul happy, and it bugs me because like I think it was Kamani Hamilton committed one of the most. It was one of their players, one of their wings. Like, stuck his hand and was grabbing the collar of one of the Grand Canyon players, and then he got whistled for a foul. I think it might have been his fifth. It was fourth or fifth. And he's like, "What did I do?" He's like running around the paint. He's like, "What? How did I commit a foul?" And he's talking about how
can you call that?
And like the guy tried to do a rip through, and so like there was contact initiated by the Grand Canyon guy, but it was like, no, you had a fistful of his shirt, stiff arming him. No, you got called for a foul. But he's like, I didn't commit a foul. I didn't touch him. Like, he hit my arm. It's like, yeah, because your arm was attached to his chest. That's why he hit it. So it's like, there's that aspect to it. And I've laid my criticisms bare about Josh Pastner and his impact on his players' mentality. But give credit to UNLV. They made the plays when they needed to. They dang near didn't. They dang near blew it and let Grand Canyon make those plays. But Draw Gibbs Lawhorn, when he's on, he's unstoppable. Of course, he was on in the first half, not so much in the second half. But they had enough guys to take over for him. Walter Brown hit some key shots. Kamani Hamilton hit some key shots. Both those guys ended up fouling out, but they hit key shots before they ended up going out. So good stuff by UNLV. But yeah, this was definitely an interesting game, and like UNLV didn't have one of their better players, Tyron Jones, where he was a big reason. Like if UNLV doesn't have Tyron Jones against the Aggies, they don't win that game. And now UNLV has been able to win some of these games without Tyron Jones. So it's kind of interesting the dangerous and kind of toxic team that UNLV has become. Not toxic in like a, in the negative sense of like their personality or who they are, but like toxic in that they can beat you, but they're also 11-12. So like that's the kind of toxic that they are, is that they'll beat you and then they'll suck for 5 games and have a sub 500 record, but they got that win that they can hang over you, and that's hanging over the Aggies still. Like there's a world in which the Aggies don't get into the NCAA tournament because of that loss to UNLV. Now that's a dark world that includes, probably 3 or 4 more losses for the Aggies, not just that UNLV one, but like that's something that kind of hangs over the Aggies and may very well end up costing them a Mountain West regular season title if they slip up at all the rest of the way. But yeah, entertaining game with UNLV. Yeah,
and then one other game. I know we're a little long on segment. We got to wrap this one quickly, but another exciting one in the Mountain West. Boise State goes to the pit, and they end up beating New Mexico in overtime, 91-90. Close game, down to the wire, back and forth. New Mexico had some chances where they were kind of in the lead in the first half, but not by much. Boise evens it. It's a lot of back and forth, lead changes. Boise starts to separate, but New Mexico comes back. But 91-90, a lot of points scored. New Mexico with back-to-back losses on their home court after not losing there for 23 straight games. And then Utah State broke them, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
On their home court.
But Boise also made 15 3-pointers. Like they had to have, I think as one New Mexico fan put it, they had to have the perfect game. They did.
And they did.
Dylan Andrews goes for 33 when he's averaging about 3.3 for a lot of the first part of the season. Although I also know a lot of New Mexico fans blame the referees. Don't. The referees weren't. So many New Mexico fans whining like in the stadium about perfectly legitimate calls. I was like, come on. Not that that's completely unique to New Mexico fans, but I got that impression that they would complain about the fans. Don't. That was a fairly called game.
Yeah, but big showdown. Dylan Andrews with 33 points. Luke Haupt for New Mexico had 30. When you get 91 points from one team and 90 from another, you're going to have some high scores from individuals.
Yeah, it was a great back and forth.
Big performances back and forth. So it's a 2-team race now at the top between Utah State and San Diego. And technically the Aggies have the tiebreaker, beating the Aztecs, but still they're tied in their conference records. Other games in the conference on Saturday, really not that close, really not that interesting. But a quick time out here in the Full Court Press. Talk about playoffs. We'll keep talking about
playoffs.
The move to the postseason instead of just the Mountain West. What about high school? The final rankings are out. The playoff pairings have been put to paper with the brackets. We'll update you and reveal what that looks like for our local schools. Coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Now here's a concept. You earmark a third of your profits to go back into the community to local charities. Dex Imaging does that. My name is Nate Lamson, and I'd like to share with you what I know about the company that acquired Valley Office Systems. Dex Imaging is committed to continuing quality customer service on your copier, printer, or office solution while raising the bar to become a strong community partner. Visit deximaging.com. We think globally, but act locally.
It's cold outside, but you can keep warm inside with a quality-built, super-efficient York furnace. Count on a furnace from York because it's backed by the strongest warranties available. Call Advanced Heating and Air Conditioning, your local York dealer, at 752-7272. Online at advancedheating-ac.com.
We're not comfortable until you are. Advanced Heating and Air.
Hi friends, this is Lydia at The Sportsman on Main Street. At The Sportsman, we try really hard to find unique products. For women, this is our first season carrying Free People movement, and you will love it. We also have great fresh looks from Viore, Pendleton, Cool, and Birkenstock. For the men, you will love our new shirts, jackets, sweaters, and pants from Cool, Fial Raven, Viore, and Pendleton. From colognes and perfumes to skis, we've got you covered.
Welcome, friend, nice to see you again at The Sportsman.
In downtown Logan.
Hey, it's JD here, and with the new year comes that familiar feeling of wanting a fresh start. We all make resolutions, eat better, be healthier, do better, but for some, the resolution that matters most is getting sober. That's why I want to tell you about Renaissance Ranch. They specialize in a faith-based, clinically proven addiction recovery. They know what it takes to break free for good. Call or visit renaissanceranch.net and make this the year that addiction no longer controls your story. Renaissance Ranch, hope, healing, and recovery.
This is Garrett with Cache Valley Bank. Life has a way of moving quickly. Kids growing up, students starting fresh, and business owners taking bold new steps. At Cache Valley Bank, we're here for all of it. Whether you're opening your first account, growing your business, saving for the future, or planning what comes next, we're proud to be your trusted financial partner right here at home. Cache Valley Bank. Real relationships, real solutions for every stage of life. Member FDIC.
What do Valentine's Day and Jarek's have in common? They're both all about the romance. Jarek's Fine Jewelry has a great selection for your sweetheart. Don't sweat it out worrying about where to get the perfect gift. We've recently added a 3D laser engraver. Now through Valentine's, Jarek's will personalize any jewelry purchase for no additional charge. We can engrave a wedding date, a name, or any message on most jewelry, like a pendant, watch, bracelet, the inside or outside of a ring. This Valentine's, let us help personalize your gift and make it special. Make it Jarek's.
Join the show by calling 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Mountain Valley Heating and Air installs high-efficiency steam humidifiers. Not stream humidifiers, steam humidifiers.
Big difference.
Yeah. They use 1 gallon of water with no waste to improve the air quality in your home. And if you're interested to get an assessment of what the air quality is in your home, you can call 435-753-5170, 5170, 753-5170, and get a free in-home air quality assessment courtesy of Mountain Valley Heating and Air. So high school basketball playoffs. The regular season is now in the books. And over the weekend, UHSAA, Utah High School Activities Association, announced their final team rankings according to classification, although I think 5A and 6A are still to come. But for 4A and 3A, we now know everybody's final rankings. And due to that, we now know what their playoff situation looks like.
Yeah, so I don't think we have time to go over every single ranking. I think we might have to just go straight into the playoffs.
Yeah, but so here's what it looks like for our teams locally. A couple of teams will be playing tomorrow night, and a couple of Region 11 rematches. So Ridgeline is number 12, and they'll be hosting number 21 Bear River. And the other game locally, rematch, number 15 Green Canyon will be hosting number 18 Mountain Crest. And Skyview, they did finish at number 8, so they are in that top 8 category to earn that first round bye. And so they await the winner of Snow Canyon and Cedar. Snow Canyon ranked 9th, Cedar ranked 24th.
Yeah.
And that game will happen on Friday.
Yeah, and then down in 3A, not so down in 3A, but in 3A, Logan finishing ranked 13th. They will travel to Castledale to take on Emory.
Yes.
They were I forget which region it was, but they were region champs in their own right.
And then quickly for girls basketball, a couple games taking place on Wednesday. Bear River is going to be headed down to Judge Memorial. Bear River finished at number 20. And then number 14, Skyview, they host number 19, Crimson Cliffs. And then on Friday afternoon, these games are scheduled for 1 o'clock, but a number of teams at first round bye. So Green Canyon has a first round bye. They finished number 2 overall. They'll face the winner of Tooele and Hurricane. Ridgeline number 7, they'll face the winner of Mountain View and Murray, with number 6 Mountain Crest waiting to find out who they will play on Saturday. It'll be Cedar or Park City. So that's a quick rundown of what's happening with our local high school teams with the playoffs this week. And we're working on getting as many of those games covered on local radio and CashValleyDaily.com this week, so stay tuned for that. Another quick timeout. When we come back, how did we do on predicting what would happen last weekend with Pick 6?
Adams Wealth Advisors tailors your future with expert in-house help. You need a CPA? No problem. Legal help? They can do that. And of course, certified financial planners with years of experience watching over every move.
This is Craig Adams. At Adams Wealth Advisors, we are here to help you receive peace of mind whether you've done a lot of planning or a little planning. Count on our team at Adams Wealth Advisors for honesty, professionalism, and integrity.
Visit AdamsWealthAdvisors.com or call 752-1702 to schedule a time with an advisor today.
Who do you turn to if you want to change out your wood or pellet stove? Advanced Fireplace and Stove. They were voted the gold medalist for Best of Northern Utah for the 5th year in a row in the fireplace retrofit category. Be ready when the government's next wood and pellet replacement incentives pop up. Advanced Fireplace can help you navigate the paperwork. For more information, call Advanced Fireplace and Stove, 752-7272. Online at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
The chips and drinks are endless. The burrito is huge for only $7.95. It's got to be Cafe Sabor, Cache Valley's best Mexican restaurant and gold medal winner in the Best of Northern Utah contest. Experience Locals Day every Thursday with a huge burrito, endless chips and soda, only $7.95. Finding any lunch under $10 is nearly impossible. Every Thursday, drinks, chips, and a massive burrito. You pay just $7.95. The food, the fun at Cafe Sabor in the historic train station on 6th West and Center in Logan.
Master Auto Tech delivers honest, reliable auto repair and maintenance from certified technicians who put customers first. From routine service to major repairs, they're committed to quality work and clear communication. With 22 Utah locations, including Logan, Brigham City, and Ogden, there's always a Master Auto Tech nearby. Master Auto Tech, expert care, local service, and confidence you can trust.
Your trusted, helpful expert, Master Auto Tech.
Spend less time at the post office. With Formax and Mint mailing systems from Les Olson IT, you can quickly, accurately, and easily process your outgoing mail and even save on postage. Fold your documents, stuff and seal your envelopes, print addresses, weigh and measure to apply proper postage, all with the click of a button. With multiple model options available, you're sure to find a Formax solution and Mint mailing device that perfectly fits your business needs.
Les Olson IT.
If you live in Box Elder County, help for ear, nose, and throat issues just got a whole lot closer. Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat is now open in their new Brigham City location. With over 75 years of combined provider experience, Dr. Jackson Deere is ready to care for allergies, asthma, sinus problems, hearing loss, and more. Finally, Cache Valley ENT in the Brigham City community at 990 South Medical Drive next to the Brigham City Hospital. Call 753-7880 to schedule or visit CacheValleyENT.com. Cache Valley ENT, trusted care now in Brigham City.
It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Napa Auto Parts is a great place to find batteries, headlights, wiper blades. All are in stock and on sale now at your local Napa Auto Parts. So at Pick 6, we try to predict what will happen over the weekend. Jason has 3 lines. I have 3 lines, and we throw in a tiebreaker as well. How did we do, Jason?
All right, so we got to do a quick fire here. Utah State rebounding margin against Wyoming, over under 1.5. I took the under, you took the over. Utah State rebounded Wyoming by 1, 28-27.
Close.
So I get that one. Points by Air Force against San Diego State. It's the line at 49.5. I took the under, you took the over. Air Force had 54. Drake May touchdowns responsible for in the Super Bowl. He had 2. The line was 2.5. You took the under, I took the over. So you're up 2-1. Jaren Jackson Jr. points and rebounds against Orlando. You said the line at 18.5. He had 26 total. 22 points, 4 rebounds. I had the under, you had the over. So you're up 3-1.
Okay, I like how this is trending.
New Mexico, 3-pointers made against Boise State. Over under 6.5. You took the under, I took the over. They hit 11 in the loss.
A lot.
Field goals made in the Super Bowl. Over under 3.5. I took the over, you took the under. There were 4. So I got that one. It's tied 3-3. And then Boise State minus 3.5 over New Mexico. Boise won 63-35. I took the Broncos. So
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. When a Super Bowl turns into a track meet, the praise flows easily. We hear about elite quarterback play, offensive geniuses, and the game is labeled an instant classic. When the score stays low and defenses take control, the conversation flips. Suddenly it's boring, sloppy, but don't fall for the trap. What we saw last night was not bad football. It was elite football. A defensive clinic delivered on the sport's biggest stage. The Seahawks defense put together a performance for the ages. 6 sacks, 3 forced turnovers, and they had a pick 6. 13 points allowed. Seattle's offense only found the end zone once, and the game was never truly in doubt because every New England possession felt uphill, every snap suffocating. That's the beauty of dominating defense. This was not a game decided by mistakes. Seattle dictated terms from the opening drive and never let go. And now the Seahawks are world champs, not because the game was flashy, but because it was mastered. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.
It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, answer. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! Did he get it?
Good afternoon. Welcome on in. Hour number 2 of the Full Court Press, though it will not be a full hour with us.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're getting cut off by the Jazz. We got cut off at the end of last hour, and thanks 6391 for letting us know. I was like, we knew we've got a hard out at 4:56 and 50 seconds. Like, we get cut off, whatever we're doing. We have some leeway on our other breaks. But I was sprinting through those pick 6 results. I can't sprint very fast, but I was trying. The long and short of it is that I said it was Boise State versus New Mexico. I don't think I mentioned that was women's basketball. That was the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where Boise won 63-35. I took the Broncos in that one. So that was a tiebreaker. So it went 3-3. Like, Eric went up 3-1 in pick 6. And I made that comeback.
Yep.
I was that Cleveland Cavaliers
sweep
against the Warriors. So yeah, I managed to win pick 6 at the last second. So for those who are obviously, well, a lot of you missed the exact ending to that, but I won pick 6, 4-3 on the tiebreaker.
Nicely done. It was close.
It was close.
It was a lot of those lines were pretty close.
We're getting pretty good at picking these lines.
Yes.
We're not always good at it because, like, I swear every single pick 6 for like the last 2 months has been the winner gets 4. Like, that's kind of the magic number is you get 4.
Yeah.
Sometimes on the tiebreaker, that's where you get your 4th. Like, I don't know if either of us have gotten like 5 or 6 in like a long time. Like, not even 5. Like, 6 is pretty rare to do. That's
a full sweep is very rare.
But like even 5 it's been a minute since either of us has done that.
So last hour, we spent a lot of time talking about Utah State basketball. They got that win at Wyoming over the weekend to keep pace with staying on top of the Mountain West Conference. Aggies are receiving votes, but not in the top 25, but still doing well. having a double-digit lead in the closing minutes and eking out a win. Kind of scary situation to see that happen, but that wasn't the only Mountain West game that finished that way. UNLV Grand Canyon also had a kind of a similar finish. Boise State and New Mexico, a little different, but it was down to the wire and went extra. An exciting game in the pit for Boise. Other games were really not that interesting in the Mountain West, but we see where we're at and see where we're into the standings right now in the Mountain West. And Utah State still doing fine. But we look at the Mountain West, shifting from basketball to football. It's there's the things that are continuing to change in the landscape of what's going on in college sports. And Jason, we've got some breaking news.
We've got some significant breaking news tonight.
We got some breaking news.
The latest in conference realignment on the Conference Realignment and Expansion Show.
That's what this is.
Yeah, that's what we have to remind you guys. We say full court press, but what we really mean is the Conference Realignment and Expansion Show. And we have some expansion news today. We did already kind of mention it in the first hour. But North Dakota State, the mighty Bison or Bison, maybe I should double check their media guide or their brand guidelines. But NDSU is coming to the Mountain West. The Aggies will not run into them. They may not play them ever. I don't know if the Aggies will ever put them on their schedule unless they're coming to Utah State. But there won't be any overlap there. But I think, 10-time national champion in the last 15 years, North Dakota State, they're coming to the Mountain West. There was the rumors on Friday or Saturday, like Friday and Saturday, the unofficially official reports from all the national beat writers, and then the Mountain West officially official announcing that this morning.
Well, it's interesting timing too, because it was on Friday's show. We talked about Sacramento State trying to buy their way into the FBS level, offering $10 million to any conference that would take them as a football-only school. And I thought, that's a funny bribe. No one's going to take it. So you have to pay $10 million to whatever conference and the $5 million to the NCAA to move up. So it's a $15 million cost for Sacramento State. But the only conference that was marginally looking at them was the MAC. And so it was kind of laughable. And then not 24 hours later, this really picks up steam. It's like, well, this is happening. And not only is it happening, they're willing to pay even more to make it happen. And certainly they are a more valuable product, a more known product, a more established product in what they do on the football field.
I'll say this. Sacramento State's president and athletics director are throwing furniture across the room over this.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like, it is their dream. Like, they could die happy tomorrow if they knew they were going to end up in FBS. Like, they'll write on their gravestone, we got Sacramento State into FBS. It is the one thing that they will do, die trying. And they'll go to hell and back just to get into the MAC. And North Dakota State just lickety-split. Like, wasn't it like 2 weeks ago or something like that like North Dakota State's AD or something like, I think it was North Dakota State's AD was like, yeah, we've been calling, but like the Mountain West hasn't really said that they want us. And then boom, the Mountain West, apparently there was just a lack of communication because clearly there was mutual interest there.
Or he's just trying to throw smoke and get people pointed in a different direction.
Yeah, but to me, the big reason behind this is the $12 million that North Dakota State is paying. Mind you, they're paying $17 million in total, but 12 of that is going into the coffers of the Mountain West. And without the Mountain West having necessarily quick access to the money they're trying to pry out of the Pac-12, whether or not they get it, it's not coming soon. They need that cash. They need it kind of desperately. They're already looking at a potential net loss for the conference.
Yeah, in terms of they're subsidizing their TV contract.
Yeah, their distribution,
their members.
Their distribution is not meeting what they're going to pay to a decent chunk of the membership. They need some cold hard cash on hand. And I don't know if the North Dakota State thing is coming in a lump sum. odds are it's going to come in installments. But even then, in installments, because, I mean, they might pay out to their conference, the conference distribution in installments. I don't know exactly how the mechanics of that works, but that's money that the Mountain West needs. And so they're bringing in North Dakota State. And not that North Dakota State is an unworthy addition, but I think the biggest reason why they're doing it is $12 million check.
Well, it's that, but it's also, it gets them to a better critical mass for football. It gets them to 10 football playing schools.
Yeah.
And so if there is, in a few years, another school or a few schools that end up moving, they're not like in a panic mode of trying to backfill because they still have it. This is a hedge against future changes.
Yeah, this is where if they potentially lose UNLV and New Mexico, two teams that are already kind of eyeing the Pac-12, even though UNLV recently rejected and New Mexico may not have gotten that initial invite, they both want into the Pac-12.
They would take it.
Yeah.
If they got the invite, they would go.
Yeah, they would go. So, seeing the landscape as it is, UNLV may still not, just because they were hoping to get that $20 million check from the Mountain West, but New Mexico would 100% take it. So, but that's down the line. And the thing is, the Mountain West, they may be shifting a little bit more east. They're still in the mountains, so they at least they're unlike the ACC, who has teams on the Pacific coast.
Yeah,
but they may be shifting toward the Great Plains, or the Great Plains. Like, is that? I can't remember if that extends all the way up to the Dakotas, if they're considered the Great Plains, or if that was just like Kansas and parts of Oklahoma and whatnot. But so they're expanding up that way. This may end up. Do you look at the Montana schools that have had a lot of success? There's South Dakota State, who's not, been too bad either, because you have Northern Illinois. And say you bring in some of those other FCS powerhouses, football only, they can stay in like the Horizon League or the Big Sky, or these conferences they're in basketball and all these other sports. You bring them in for football, that's something that could help them out. Of course, if they lose two full member institutions to the Pac-12 or anybody else, they might need to add some of these schools as full members. But this could be a precursor to adding some of these other conferences, or some of these other FCS powerhouses that are in the, that northern U.S. And wouldn't be too bad for the Mountain West, given the situation that they're in. It's not going to help them recover what they were, but if they manage to play their cards well enough, they can at least avoid becoming the MAC. Or Conference USA. They can at least try to stay relatively equal with the Sun Belt and the American.
Well, as you said, they've won 10 national championships in the last 15 years. They've had a great, rich football tradition, and some very familiar names have been their head coaches. Craig Bohl, who was at Wyoming for a time and was a semi-successful coach at Wyoming. Matt Entz, who's currently at Fresno State, trying to turn some things around there. Chris Kleeman. So they've had some recognized names be their head coaches and win national titles. And so they've been able to spin them up into other programs where these other schools see what's happening on their campus and in their football program, and taking those coaches and trying to apply those same principles at a higher level. So now North Dakota State's like, we try to control our own destiny a little bit more here. But so there's a question about, will they be competitive or not? Because while they have had success to the FCS, how much of that would translate to the FBS? They do have a rich football culture. They're used to winning, but how will that translate at this level? The other thing too is, if this move, they will not be allowed to compete for conference championships. They will not be able to compete in college football playoffs or anything like that for a little while. Can't do bowl games until 2028.
Is it 2 years?
It's 2 years.
It's so dumb. I don't think that should be a rule anymore, but it's going to stay a rule because they're already trying to prevent FCS by raising the dollar amount it costs. So I don't see that rule getting overturned anytime soon.
There is a slight caveat there with bowl games. If all bowls are not filled, that they're still looking for teams to fill bowl spots, North Dakota State could be added as a fill-in, but otherwise could not qualify or participate in a game because of their 2-year transition.
Yeah. Now, I know there was one report that North Dakota State is going to try and appeal and get that eligibility. And you know what? I'm not going to tell you don't do it because, you know what? The worst you're going to hear back is no. But I'm going to say right now, the answer you're going to get back is no. Like, you're not the first to try it. James Madison tried it. Who was there? Somebody this year that was bowl eligible that tried it? There's been a few FCS teams that have had immediate success. Like, there have been some pretty solid ones, but there are others, like I think it was Sam Houston State, who was doing pretty well at the FCS level, came to the FBS level, and now they suck, like a lot.
Yeah.
But James Madison, they were pretty solid. I don't think they were having anything close to what North Dakota State was doing, but they come up to FBS and yeah, they were bowl eligible their first year. They've been running the Sun Belt now. So there are just, there's every spot on the spectrum that North Dakota State could be as far as their level of success. And I'll be darned, I'm not sure I could really predict it for you because I haven't really seen a rhyme or reason as to why a team will succeed or fail immediately upon coming to the FBS because maybe I haven't looked at it closely enough, but I haven't seen enough differentiation because you think, if you're successful at FCS, you'll automatically be good at FBS. So it's like sometimes they are, but sometimes they're trash.
So the question for me is, did the Pac-12 miss out on this opportunity?
No.
Should they have pursued
Absolutely
North Dakota
not.
State?
The Pac-12 should not be going after any FCS teams. Like, that's just the whole point of the Pac-12 is to try and get the best of the mid-major and group of 6. And there's not a single FCS school that fits that bill. The only one I would say counts is James Madison, but James Madison isn't FCS anymore. They're dominating the FBS. Of course, I don't think they're really on the table because of geography. So for the Pac-12, like adding Texas State was kind of, you might say, bad enough, but like, because that's kind of a mid-level G6 team. But in the Pac-12 was kind of desperate because they would have taken UNLV or New Mexico, I think, or at least UNLV over Texas State. Like they were trying to get Memphis and Tulane. Like they have been targeting high-level G6. And North Dakota State, for all of the wonderful things that can and should be said about the program they have and the success they've had, and they deserve more attention, because there's so many people that don't pay attention. People who cover football on a national scale, like we're not going to cover them because we're here in Utah, but people on a national scale who cover football who ignore the wonderful things going on with the Dakota schools in their football. But they are not on that look. Could they eventually get there? Who knows? But
yeah, so big news today in conference realignment and expansion with North Dakota State headed to the Mountain West. We still don't know what the Pac-12 football schedule will look like, or the basketball. Let's know some details
rumors
about
that we're going to
basketball.
hear about that a little bit soon.
But I would imagine it's probably close to happening since all the presidents and ADs all met last week. So, or was it the week after that? Anyway, there should be closer to that. Utah Jazz basketball is coming up next here on The Fan.